What's going on, everyone? So Philadelphia is a bit of a mess right now. Obviously, James Harden, he wants to be traded. There were reports recently that he wants to be traded still to the Clippers, that he's hopeful that eventually the Sixers will end up working a deal out to get him over to the Clippers. Philly needs to keep Joel Embiid happy, right? Joel Embiid seems willing to kind of ride this out for now, and we'll see. But James Harden has been the guy that he'll sabotage the season. If he's not happy, he's a guy that is more than happy to just go, all right, fine, right? I'll just do the bare minimum. I'll show up so I don't get fined. And I mean, he did it to Houston, so much so they thought he was wearing a fat suit. That's not a good sign. He did it to Brooklyn, and now he's going to do it to Philly. So what is the answer? What do you do? Well, one, you could trade James Harden and just kind of unload him and, tell Joel Embiid, hey, look, we'll unload Harden. We might not be competitive this year, but, at least you'll get some pieces that want to play. And then next year we'll have a bunch of cap space and maybe we can go get that other piece. Or the second option is whether you keep Harden or not, you go and make a push for Damian Lillard, right? So Damian Lillard to the Philadelphia 76ers could be a real possibility, right? Philly has already touched base and talked to the Blazers about a Damian Lillard trade that's been reported several times now. And the big hiccup seems to be that the Sixers don't want to give up Tyrese Maxey. So, if it was me and I was the Sixers, I would go and talk to Joel Embiid and say, do you want us to go get Damian Lillard at the cost of Tyrese Maxey? Yes or no? And if Joel Embiid says, yes, go get me Damian Lillard, you immediately go get Damian Lillard. Because this time next year, if you're the Sixers, you could be looking at a roster that's just Tyrese Maxey. Okay? Joel Embiid wanting out, now you have to go through the process of trading him and all that stuff, and that would be an absolute disaster for the Sixers, who have failed time and time again. But if you go and you trade for Damian Lillard, now, worst case scenario, maybe you do trade James Harden to the Clippers to go get a bunch of filler pieces that could be nice around Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid. You could also keep some flexibility, right? You go get a Robert Covington, a Nicholas Batum, maybe you get a Terrence Mann, and then now you got those three guys to add to Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, your core group of guys. You also got several big men. You're in a great position, right? And Kelly Oubre, right? So now you'd have depth, you'd have some nice size, some nice versatility, you'd have Dame and Joel Embiid, right? And Damian Lillard is a guy that fixes a lot of the problems that Philly has. Damian Lillard shows up in the playoffs. He's not afraid of the moment. He can close, hit big shots, something Joel Embiid has had issues with, and something definitely James Harden has had issues with. But the other option is you go get Damian Lillard and you get him in a Sixers jersey, and maybe that's enough to keep James Harden happy and go, you know what? Me, Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, PJ Tucker, and Tobias Harris. I mean, that may be the best team in the Eastern Conference. Might end up being one of, if not the best teams in the entire league. I mean, all that firepower, because James Harden can still go off on any given night. He doesn't have now the pressure of being that go-to scorer and that closer down the stretch. It's kind of the idea with Harden, Kyrie, and Kevin Durant. More so, I think this would be better fitting. Because now Dame can basically be your two guard and just go get you buckets. And James Harden can be the point guard playmaker, right? Which is something that he's really good at and thrives at. Led the league in assists last year, right? This is a guy that can absolutely go get buckets, and he could slot up alongside Damian Lillard. Defensively, I get it, your front court wouldn't be great, your back court wouldn't be great, but your back court isn't some great elite defensive team anyway, and teams would still have to outscore you, and you have Damian Lillard who could close down the stretch, go give you 30 on a given night. James Harden could still go get his 20 and 12, and then Joel Embiid could still do Joel Embiid things. That would take a ton of pressure off of Joel Embiid all season, during the regular season. And then, even after that, James Harden, PJ Tucker, Tobias Harris, all those guys, all the money goes away. Literally, the only guys you'd have left on your roster essentially would be Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid. If Harden works out and things are great, you could maybe, patch that up and repair that and re-sign James Harden. Or if he wants to leave, you let him leave, and you got Damian Lillard, Joel Embiid, and now you can go fill out a roster between those two, especially if you win the NBA championship. If you win the championship, I don't think James Harden leaves. But even if he does, right? Like, okay, you still have Damian Lillard. You got Dame his first championship. You got Joel Embiid his first championship. And you got James Harden his first championship. Or if James Harden still wants out and wants to be traded, then fine, you go do that. Here you go. Go take trade. And then there you go. And again, it depends on what the Blazers value, based on the reports, because it's all we have to go off of, is that they really like Tyrese Maxey, which is understandable. He's a legit two-way guard that is extremely young, has a ton of potential, could slot right next to Scoot Henderson. So you could basically have Scoot Henderson, Tyrese Maxey as your backcourt for the next 7+ years. And then if you're Portland, you could still go and trade for DeAndre Ayton if you want. So now you got Scoot Henderson, DeAndre Ayton, and Tyrese Maxey alongside with Jeremy Grant. Like, that's a pretty good position to be in. And then you could go with like Sharp or Murray or whomever, right, as that fifth spot. Now you got a nice young core. That could be something that they really value, that they really like. Now, is that better than the Toronto, what Toronto could potentially give them? I don't know, right? It depends on where they value guys, right? Like OG Anunoby, you can make an argument, makes more sense with the current roster, right? And then if they still went and did the Ayton deal, then you'd have OG, Ayton, and Jeremy Grant and Scoot Henderson with like Sharp, right? So you could basically go a starting five of like Scoot, Sharp, OG, Grant, and Ayton. That's basically your starting five for the foreseeable future. Like, that would be a pretty good spot to be in. The only question that I have is that, the Blazers don't seem interested at all in Tyler Hero. Now, is that just because of Tyler Hero, or is that because they just don't want another guard, right? But if you go get a Tyrese Maxey, well, then now you could trade Simons and maybe even unload him in a deal for Ayton, right? You do Nurk and Simons for Ayton and whatever else, right? And that's kind of the approach that you go. Plus, you get some picks or whatever else that you want. That could be something that maybe would be enticing. But there were reports not like a week or so ago that said Philly could get the deal done if they were willing to include Maxey. Again, it's all speculation. It's all rumors. You don't know what is real until it actually happens and gets done. That could be just total nonsense. It could be just total, somebody pulled that out of nowhere. That could have just been a pressure play just to get maybe Miami to work harder or whatever, right? That is something that could have been a real possibility. Time will tell, but I don't know. I think if you're Philly, the idea of going and getting Damian Lillard, I think makes sense regardless. Because you're doing everything you can to keep Joel Embiid. And you're doing everything you can to try to win as soon as possible. And I think Damian Lillard gives you more of an opportunity for that right now than Maxey. I think Maxey is the guy, if you're rebuilding, right, and you're looking to trade Joel Embiid, then you do everything you can to keep Maxey, because that's a great cornerstone to kind of now continue to build and grow and find complementary pieces around him. But if the idea is to keep Joel Embiid and try to win a championship with Joel Embiid, I think you go get Damian Lillard, and then you hope that is enough to kind of get James Harden to buy back in, because you can say, look, you'd have Joel Embiid and Damian Lillard with the rest of this roster that you were a game away from being in the conference finals. And I personally believe Philly would have beaten Miami. That's just me. I took Miami to beat Boston because Boston lacks mental toughness. So I figured Miami would beat them, and Miami just seems to have their number. Where Philly, I actually think Philly would have won that series, but that's something we'll never know for fact. But you could kind of sell James Harden on that as dude, if you were a game away from very likely being in the NBA Finals, you don't think you could do that with, you don't think you'd been in the finals and maybe won an NBA championship with Damian Lillard, right? And you can make an argument that him, Joel Embiid, and Dame with the current core that they have may be better than with the Clippers because of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George basically missing 40 games a year and can't even play in the playoffs. Just a thought. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Do you agree? Disagree? Do you think Philly should? Yeah, go all in for Dame. Do you think no? Love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments.